The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. A game so nice, I own it twice. Yes, that's a Palmer video sticker. God, I'm old. A Link to the Past, my all-time favorite Zelda game next to Wand of Gamelon, of course. It was the only entry on the lovely little purple box called the Super Nintendo, and it pushed a little 16-bit Wonder Machine to its limit. Visually, it took a big step up, and went back to the series' roots after this ill-fated experiment. The worlds actually had stuff in them now. Rather than blank spaces surrounded by bushes and rocks, suddenly we've got different terrain like shrubbery and sand. We've got detailed forests, caves, a freaking volcano, a giant pyramid, and there's a little village, showing that Hyrule actually has other little citizens you can interact with. They offer you hints, sell you stuff, even narc on you. Link even has his own little house that he shares with his uncle. With one bed. Oh, let's not. The outside world actually was like a giant sprawling dungeon in and of itself, rather than just a little hub with some road bumps. You know what else blew my mind? Minor spoiler alert from here on out. There were 2 worlds to explore. In addition to regular old Hyrule, there was this parallel world called the Dark World. The environments were unique while following the same fundamental layout, and the stuff you did in one world could actually affect the other. The dungeons were a huge step up. For the most part, they all looked pretty unique, and the bosses were really something else. I mean, look, a giant worm, a scorpion, Mothra, fire jellyfish, and then there's a turtle with 2 elemental snakes that actually required 2 different rods to defeat, including one that isn't even found in its own dungeon. Speaking of items, you've got the staples, the bow, the boomerang, and the bombs all make comebacks, but there's some neat new ones too. You had the Pegasus boots that lets you charge up and dash into stuff, the Ice Rod, which is the counterpart to the classic Fire Rod, the Power Glove that lets you toss boulders, the Hook Shot, which became ubiquitous throughout the series, which allowed you to pull yourself across gaps and stun enemies. But of course there's the main event, the Master Sword. That's right, this game introduced Link's signature weapon that would appear in just about every subsequent entry. The soundtrack is another place where you can really tell the difference between 8 and 16 bits. There's the Hyrule Overworld theme, the Dark World theme, the Lost Woods, and a lot more. Story-wise, it still saves Zelda from Ganon at its core. But this time there's other generic maidens to save, so it's like having 7 princesses for the price of 1. But there's also plenty of side characters for you to interact with too. Here's your uncle again, somehow dead from the same fall that left you unscathed, but he gives you a sword and shield, so that's pretty cool. There's a sick little boy who gives you a bug-catching net, a pair of witches who give you magic powder, twin blacksmiths who upgrade your sword, and even this homeless guy under a bridge who gives you a bottle for some reason. I had a similar experience with a homeless guy under a bridge, except his bottle was full of whiskey. Now, I'm a sucker for retro games, and I appreciate the classics, but this one bested the original in just about everything. Not just the graphics and the audio, but the way the developers made clever use of the parallel worlds, the slightly darker story, the scope of the world, and the complexity of the dungeons. But I've played through Link to the Past at least once a year for nearly 2 decades. Of course, it's not without its flaws. Sometimes the bosses can be a little frustrating, some locations are still identical to each other. Screw the ice levels, seriously. But it's definitely my favorite Zelda game, and it's spawned a Link Between Worlds on the 3DS, which might be my second favorite Zelda game too, with Wand of Gamelon being a close third. Sorry, Ocarina.
Got to be kidding.